What's going on, family? We are back with another video, guys. And ooh-wee, let me tell you what, it's about to be a good one today, man. We are going to be talking about integrity, right? We're going to be talking about integrity. And the Lord has really just been highlighting this to me recently, and really causing me to focus on areas in my life where I had not been essentially walking in integrity. And I'm really excited to open up and talk to you guys about the importance of integrity today, because there's some things that I knew in the past, but you just don't really see how crucial it is for you to walk in integrity until some of these things I'm about to talk about become highlighted, right? So let's not delay, man. Let's not delay. Let's go ahead and dive right into it. So here's what I have. Okay, I have my notes here, so we're just gonna go nice little flow, commentary with it. So let's go ahead and get started. We must strive to think and act in accordance with truth, honor, justice, purity, and excellence in order to live with integrity. All right, so we know this, guys. Humanity is in a fallen state. Therefore, being in a fallen state, there are times where we lack integrity. It's just a byproduct of sin, right? And so what are some examples of lacking integrity? Let me share with you. Taking something small without permission, right? You think I ain't gonna get caught. Let me just go ahead and snag that, right? Taking something small without permission. Don't clock out of work for lunch. Take credit for something that you did not do. Exaggerate the truth or even tell a partial truth, gossip, tell white lies, and in some cases even overpromise, right? Especially overpromise, especially when you think that what you're saying, the other person, it sounds good to the other person, right? You're like, I'm just going to exaggerate this and I'm going to overpromise this because I know that that's what that person wants to hear, and okay, and carry on about your business, right? And so these are all examples, though, of us not walking in integrity, right? White lies, man. Let me tell you what, guys. Before I was walking with the Lord, man, and I was out in the dating scene and just essentially living that Playboy lifestyle, hooking up with a lot of women. I would tell white lies all the time because I might get intimate with a woman and she'd be like, are you talking to anyone else? And I'd be like, nope, and straight up lie, because why? I didn't want to take accountability for my actions, and I didn't want to deal with the headache. And my mindset at that time was, I'm not in a committed relationship with you right now, so why does it even matter? But in those moments, I was telling white lies. Even last week, or not even last week, I think it was like a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, right? I was on my way into the office and I called my staff and I said, hey, I'm going to be running late today. Traffic is crazy. Traffic was normal. Traffic was normal. But in all reality, I woke up late that morning and I just didn't want to take accountability for me waking up late. So what did I do? I placed the blame. I placed the issue on an external factor that I wouldn't have control over. Right. And so it's very easy to do these things, guys, slipping into white lies. Even today, it was so funny because even today I was putting together this message for this video. And while I was at work, there was an employee from a different department. He came in and he asked me, right, straight up asked me if I could write him an exemption for his window tint in his vehicle. And I'm like, what? Where? That was so left field for me. I'm like, where is this coming from? But apparently his window tint was dark and the state trooper pulled him over. And so he wanted me to give him a doctor's exemption to falsely diagnose him with a disease that he does not have, just so that way he could go back to the court and say, I had a doctor sign off on this and I'm exempt, and now I can continue to ride around town in my window tint and not get any recommendations from it, essentially breaking the law for no reason, and on top of that, he was like, I'll pay you, trying to bribe me. And I was like, I'm telling you what, man, like, it was funny because I actually did a little bit of a Bible study with one of my coworkers, and it was on integrity, and that's what prompted the creation of this video in the first place. But I was like, let this be a live like situation to where you can really see this happen, because it happened the same day that we spoke about this, and I was like, look, I got to make a video on this. But yeah, this happened to me today. Right. And so he was essentially wanting me to walk in less than integrity and take a bribe and be dishonest. And I was like, looked him straight in the eye. I was like, no, you got the wrong one. Not me, bucko. So that's the reality, guys. We do these things sometimes in life and we don't even realize it. It's not until later on in life that the Holy Spirit brings conviction that we're like, whoa, wow, I've been lacking in the integrity department. Right. So we know this. God calls us to live like Jesus. Therefore, God calls us to walk in integrity. And we can achieve this through the power of God. OK, so I want to highlight now, what is the need for integrity? Why do we need to walk in integrity? And Psalms chapter 15, verses 1-5 is going to tell us. So it says this: who may worship in your sanctuary, Lord? Who may enter your presence on your holy hill? Check this. Those who lead blameless lives and do what is right, speaking the truth from sincere hearts. Those who refuse to gossip or harm their neighbors or speak evil of their friends. Those who despise fragrant sinners and honor the faithful followers of the Lord and keep their promises even when it hurts. That's a thing, guys. It can be hard sometimes to keep promises even when it hurts. But why can we trust the Lord? Because he keeps his promises. How do we know he keeps his promises? Because we see in Jesus. Jesus was sent here to die on the cross and fulfilled everything. He is the word in itself, right? And so by us seeing the candid word of God through the fulfillment of the life of Jesus, we know that the Lord keeps his promises. And you better believe it was hard for him to do that. You better believe it was hard for him to send the only begotten son to essentially be the sacrifice to reconcile us back to him, right? Jesus hung on that cross, suffering, but still followed through and kept the promise. And that's one thing that I've had to realize, guys. How likely are you to keep your word? How likely are you to keep your word? Right? You think about a word, your word is almost like your spiritual credit score. Man, I'm telling you, right? If you go to the bank today and your credit score is like 400, 420, and you ask for a bank loan, they're going to look at you like you're crazy. Like, no way. Why? Because this guy is not likely to pay it back. However, if you walk into the bank today with an 850 credit score, they'll give you a loan for $1 million on the spot. Why? Because you're more likely to pay it off. So when you think about your word in that context, your word is almost like your spiritual credit score. How likely are you to keep your word, even in times where it hurts? Okay. Verse 5, those who lend money without charging interest and who cannot be bribed to lie about the innocent, such people will stand firm forever. Right. And so I want to talk to you about the holy hill. What is the holy hill? The holy hill of the Lord represents higher spiritual ground, right? And this brings us closer to the Lord. A hill or mountain often symbolizes the temple, right? And so those who walk blamelessly and do what is right get closer to the Lord. We gain higher spiritual ground. We get closer in proximity to the Lord, aka we get to know him more intimately. Okay? So very important, very important. And now I want to talk to you about the consequences of lacking integrity. And we're going to throw in a few verses here, but let's just start off with Proverbs chapter 11, verse 3. It says this: honesty guides good people. Dishonesty destroys treacherous people. Right? I have here, the integrity of the upright will guide them. The man or woman who lives with integrity, and integrity is a trustworthy life lived without shame or secrets, is recognized as upright and will have their integrity guide them. Integrity guides you. It gives you guidance. right? And I want to follow it up with this. Psalms 25, verse 21. May integrity and honesty protect me, for I put my hope in you. Integrity and honesty offer protection. Here's the thing, guys. I remember there was times in my life where I would be nervous to like lock my doors, or let me not leave this out, or let me make sure that I'm checking my P's and Q's so nobody robs me or steals from me or does anything malicious to me. But one mental shift that I have made now is, as long as I'm walking in integrity, I am protected. I am shielded, right? Here's another aspect of it. Proverbs chapter 2, verse 7, it says this: He grants treasure of common sense to the honest. He is a shield for those who walk in integrity. Right? So carrying on what I just highlighted, but check this. Honesty gives you common sense. Dishonesty brings confusion. When you're honest, it's easy to just bring forth the truth and talk about the truth. When you're dishonest, you have to fabricate a way to essentially lie and get away with it. And that brings confusion. And then you have to try to keep up with those lies. Brings confusion. So honesty gives you common sense. Dishonesty brings you confusion. Right? So just want to reiterate this one more time. Proverbs chapter 11, verse 3. Honesty guides good people. Dishonesty destroys treacherous people. Right? And then to follow that up, I'll say this. The false and the crooked ways of the unfaithful will bring those who practice them to destruction. And we saw this in Daniel, right? There were the men who falsely accused Daniel to have him thrown into the lion's den. What happened? The Lord delivered Daniel because Daniel was walking in integrity. And the same men, that tried to falsely accuse Daniel to have him thrown into the lion's den, ultimately became a victim of their own trap that they tried to set. And the king tossed them into the lion's den, and from there was a wrap for them. So that's the thing, guys. The false and the crooked ways of the unfaithful will bring those who practice them into destruction. You continue to lie and be dishonest, you can potentially fall victim to the own trap that you're trying to set. All right. Moving on. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 28, verse 6. Better a poor man who walks in his integrity than a rich man who is crooked in his ways. This is what I have here. A rich man or woman who is twisted in their life before God or man is worse often than a godly poor person. We are defined more by our character than our bank account or financial worth. Right? God couldn't care less about what the bank account looks like. What is your character like? Are you walking in godly character? Right? Because if you're essentially being crooked and twisted and lying and dishonest to amass this wealth, I got news for you. Pride comes before the fall. You know what I mean? So God looks at the character. God looks at our heart's intentions, and he could care less about our bank account. Right? So moving on. I want to talk to you now about how God will intervene and save us when we are faced with persecution, as long as we are walking in integrity. So for this, I'm going to be referencing Daniel chapter 3, right? And so Daniel chapter 3, King Nebuchadnezzar, just a quick summary before we get to these verses. King Nebuchadnezzar makes a golden idol and has everybody bow down and worship it. Right? And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego like, no, sorry, we worship the one true God, and this ain't it, Joker. This is not it. So sorry, we're not going to do that. And so other servants come to report to King Nebuchadnezzar, look, King, we got these guys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And even though you created this golden idol to be worshiped, they not bowing down. So look. And you said, if they're not bowing down, we're going to toss them into the furnace. And King Nebuchadnezzar ordered that they come before him. And this is where we're going to pick up. Verse 16. So Daniel chapter 3, verse 16. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied, O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you if we are thrown into the blazing furnace. The God whom we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power, your majesty. But even if he doesn't, we want to make it clear to you, your majesty, that we will never serve your gods or worship the gold statue you have set up. This is an example of how they stayed 10 toes down to the Lord. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were walking in integrity. They're walking in the truth and in the values that were set before them. And they know that it was not right for them to worship any other gods. And they told him, look, if you throw us into that fire, our Lord going to deliver us. But even if he does not, we're still not doing it. Come on now. We're still not doing it. So your boy King Nebuchadnezzar, man, he's heated at this point. He like, heat that fire up. Heat the furnace up times 7 and throw them jokers in. Right? He had them heat the furnace up times 7 to throw Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in. And even the furnace was so hot that the soldiers that went to go throw Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego in actually caught on fire and burned up and died. That's how hot it was. It was that hot. So we know the story. They threw them into the furnace, into the fire, robes and all, clothes and all. And King Nebuchadnezzar is now looking in. He's like, didn't we throw 3 people in there? Why am I seeing a 4th? And the 4th is a representation of Jesus Christ. And what I believe is him delivering in the way that when we put our trust in him, he'll deliver us from the fiery hell, right? But anyways, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they didn't get burned up. And Nebuchadnezzar's like, okay, what's going on? Bring these boys out. Bring them out. And so that's when the aha moment sat in for King Nebuchadnezzar. And he realized that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's God is the one true God, right? And so he says this, verse 29, we're going to hop down into there. Therefore, I make this decree. If any people, whatever their race or nation or language, speak a word against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they will be torn limb from limb, torn up, straight up, just like that, torn from limb to limb, and their houses will be turned into heaps of rubble. There is no other God who can rescue like this. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to even higher positions in the province of Babylon. That's an amazing story, guys, because here it is. When we are faced with persecution and we are walking in integrity, the Lord will deliver us. But not only will he deliver us, he will promote us to a new level because we're walking in integrity and we were putting our trust in him, right? And that kind of ties into the first point that I was making, dwelling on the holy hill. When you walk in integrity, it gets you closer to the Lord. This is a representation here. We can even see that after this scenario went down, they got promoted to even a higher level, right? So you walk in integrity and it takes you higher with the Lord. Okay. So here we are, guys. We're going to wrap it up here. In conclusion, this is what I just outlined. We must strive to think and act in accordance with truth, honor, justice, purity, and excellence in order to live with integrity. Okay. We must recognize our fallen state in humanity and rely on the power of God's grace to transform us. We are saved by grace through faith. It's not our own power. It's not our own works. It's by the grace of God solely. We can solely rest on just the grace of God because that's it. We can't, I mean, I get it. Faith without works is dead, but from the standpoint, we have to realize that it is the grace of God that saves us, and it's the grace of God that transforms us. Okay. And lastly, let us commit to living lives of integrity, trusting in God's strength to guide and protect us. Right? Trusting in the Lord's strength to not only guide us, but also protect us and rescue us in the times of persecution. All right. So that's going to be a wrap on this video, guys. I hope the video bless you. As always, stay prayed up, stay faithful, stay blessed, and I'll see you in the next one.